If you're paying a ton for that asset up front and you need every last dollar, every last collected dollar of projected rent to even break even or make a couple bucks, and then all of a sudden rental prices come down a little bit, you've got a really bad situation there. Every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, I come at you live with the topic that I feel is relevant for the group. We've crossed over the 12,000 agent mark in the Agent Investor Facebook group. And each and every week, I talk to agents that are in my Inner Circle program. I talk to agents that are outside of my Inner Circle program. And I just see kind of what they need help with. And out of asking those questions and talking to members in the group, we come up with topics that we think make sense to teach on, to train on, ultimately to help you achieve your real estate investing goals in a quicker, more efficient, and ultimately a safer way, right? So today's topic is on short-term rentals. And it all kind of started maybe 7 to 10 days ago. I was on a chat, a message thread, I should say, on my iPhone with two of my best friends growing up. And my two best friends from growing up both own and operate short-term rentals, and they do it very successfully and they do it very profitably. And between the two of them, they own rentals, multiple rentals in Hawaii, Cape Cod, and Florida. Okay, so three, of course, really hot destination areas, three places I'd love to go pretty much at any time during the year. Maybe not the Cape in the winter, but Cape right now sounds pretty good. So the thread started with them both, we're all talking as a group. We all grew up together. I don't own any short-term rentals, but I've watched them own and operate short-term rentals for over a decade now. And as we were kind of just going back and forth on the thread, nothing business related, one of the friends basically put out there, he asked a question to the other one saying, hey, have your bookings been slower this year? For some reason, I'm not getting as many bookings as I usually do at this time. Have you noticed that your rentals, your short-term rentals, your bookings have been a little bit slower? And they went back and forth for a while, just talking about different strategies and things that they're doing. And ultimately, long story short, both of them are experiencing a little bit of a slowdown in the bookings that they have. So that's where this all kind of started. That's why I started this conversation. That's why I did that post on my personal Facebook page, which again, if you guys are not connected to me, you're following me on my personal Facebook page, and you want more information from me that's not necessarily always in the Agent Investor Facebook group, I recommend going to Tommy Caffarella, Tommy, and then my last name, and just sending me a friend request or following me, because there's a lot of stuff I put on my personal page that I don't put in the group, because a lot of times I don't want to flood the group with stuff all day long. But on my personal page, I just, kind of go crazy and I share a ton of information. But anyways, so they started that conversation about, whether their rentals have been a little bit slower. Then I did a post about essentially why I'm not loving short-term rentals as an investment strategy right now. And before I go into detail as to why, I do want to, put the disclaimer out there. And this is so important because, I am right now talking to a group of people, all with different individual goals, all with different financial situations, all with different lives, all with different objectives. So I'm going to say a lot about short-term rentals today that's going to apply to most people. Okay. Having said that, there are some people that are listening right now that it may still make sense for you to invest in short-term rentals. It's more of a situational thing. And if I had to kind of put a number on it, I would say that the advice I'm about to give today probably is going to be applicable to 80 to 90% of the people that are listening. For the 80 to 90% of the people that are listening, short-term rentals probably is not going to make a lot of sense for you to get into starting now. There's another 10 or 20% of the people that are listening right now where it may make sense for you to invest in short-term rentals. And as I talk to a group of people who are not interactive with me, who I can't even see right now who's actually watching. I just know that there are people that are watching. I want to be really clear just to say that everyone's a little bit different. Everyone has a different starting point, ending point. So with that being said, as I'm giving this information and giving my opinion on why I won't invest in short-term rentals right now, because it doesn't make sense for me and a lot of people, if you're unsure on whether or not short-term rentals might make sense for you, or you feel like you have a specific or unique situation, the biggest recommendation I can give to you is to jump on an inner circle call. And you can do that for free one time by going to www.agentinvestorinnercircle.com. Again, that's www.agentinvestorinnercircle.com. It's a free call. You'll be able to talk with me directly about where you are at in your investing career, where you want to go, and what are the steps that need to be taken in order to bridge that gap between where you are today and where you want to be 5 or 10 years into the future. And we can also discuss investing vehicles and definitely discuss short-term rentals if short-term rentals are something that you're interested in. Okay, so having said all of that, I do want to talk about the top 5 reasons why I won't invest in short-term rentals, the top 5 reasons why I wouldn't recommend 80 to 90% of the people that are listening to invest in short-term rentals, okay? And again, before I do that, one more thing, I will say that the 2 friends that I have are doing very well with their short-term rentals. They're doing very well with their short-term rentals, though, for a reason. And the number one reason that they're doing well with their short-term rentals is because they bought those a while back. And that's going to lead into reason number 1 as to why I won't buy a short-term rental right now, which is that I believe that the prices are too high in most cases. Okay, so I'm going to give you real-life examples with these 2 friends of, what they did and why they're making money today and why it would be so challenging to make money if they were going to invest in their same properties today. So my first friend that was on that thread bought his first short-term rental in 2013, shortly after my daughter was born. I was there. We were so excited for him to buy this thing. We were like digging out the basement with him. We were doing all sorts of stuff, all sorts of physical, manual labor. And I remember he bought that property in the Cape, Lakeshore Drive, right on a lake, and drivable to Falmouth downtown. Smaller property, Cape, but could sleep, 3 to 4 people, 3 to 4 families. Actually, I should say probably more like 5 to 6 people, because I'm counting us back in the day with no kids or maybe just one kid as a family. So smaller house, maybe 1,500, 1,600 square feet overall. And he paid $250,000 for that property. I'm going to say it again. In 2013, he paid $250,000 for this lakefront property. Now, granted, this property needed work. I think he put about $70,000 to $80,000 into the property. So let's just add that up and assume that he's in the property for $350,000. So he's in this Cape for $350,000. And back then, he could rent out that property for the 10 weeks during the Cape season for around $3,500 a week. Right? It was about $500 a day back then. It's a little bit more now. And at the end of the day, he was profiting somewhere around $15,000 to $20,000 per year on that one asset. Looked like a really good purchase. Again, going back to 2013, you would say, okay, what do I want in a short-term rental? First thing is a location that people are always going to want to go to. Yes, the Cape. Yes, it's right on water, so they have access to, do all the fun, water stuff, whether it's kayak or whatever you want to do on the water. It covers the expenses. It well covered the expenses, right? So again, he was taking in $3,500 a week, $35,000 a year, and I think he was all into the property for $20,000 to $25,000 a year, including interest, taxes, and all that other stuff. But more importantly, again, reason number 1 why I would not invest in short-term rentals today is because the prices are so high. One of the most important things about him buying during the right time period is the fact that just a few years later, he was able to refi that property, pull money back out, take that money and reinvest it into another short-term rental. This part of investing a lot of times gets overlooked. People don't think about it. They only think about cash flow. Like if you read a Robert Kiyosaki, cash flow book, all that they talk about is making sure that the asset can cash flow, which I believe is so important. But there's another component to it, which is, are you getting it at the right price so that 2, 3, 4 years later, you can refi, pull some money out of the property and invest in another one? Because if you just cash flow, if you just buy an asset and it cash flows, but 2 or 3 or 4 years later, it doesn't really go up in value, you are losing the most important component of achieving financial freedom, which is using your assets as a piggy bank to take money out and then put money down on another property. That, if I had to pick one or the other, if I had to pick having a lot of cash flow and not being able to refi 2 or 3 or 4 years later down the road, or just a little bit of cash flow and being able to refi just a couple years down the road, I would actually choose having just a tiny, tiny bit of cash flow, but the ability to pull out equity 2 or 3 years down the road, because that is what allows you to continuously buy more and more and more and more properties. And that's what he ended up doing. So think about that. 2013, he paid $250,000 for this property, put 70, 80 into it, maybe was into it for $350 and was collecting $35,000 a year in rent. Now, fast forward to today. That same property, I'm going to estimate that property would be worth $800,000-$900,000 today. And you might say, well, it's been 10 years, so the rents have gone up. Yes, absolutely. The property has gone up about 4 times, right, in value. So if you're going to buy this same exact asset today, you're going to have to pay 4 times the amount. And in order for that to cash flow in the same way, you would actually most likely have to get more than 4 times the amount of rent when you actually factor in that interest rates are higher. So I'm kind of making 2 points at the same time, and I don't want to get it confused, but if you have to pay, call it $1 million for the same asset today, you would need at least 4 times the amount of rent. So think about that logically. That unit that was renting out for, what was it, $500 a night, would actually have to rent out for $2,000 a night. $2,000 a night, or $14,000 a week, right? In order to have the same similar financials. And we just know that like a Cape, like a smaller house on a lake in the Cape, it's not a $2,000 a night thing. And I don't even know what the numbers are today. I'm going to guess that they're probably more like 7, 8, 900. So maybe the rent's doubled, but the actual value of the asset is 4 times. And why is that? One of the reasons why the assets have increased so much in value is because everybody wants to do it, which is another reason why, this isn't even in my top 5 reasons, but it's another reason why short-term rentals just scare me in general. Anytime that anybody's doing anything, or they want to do any type of investing, or they're talking about it all the time, it makes me very nervous because the crowd is typically wrong. In almost all cases, by the time I sit down in my barber chair and there's somebody telling me for whatever reason that they're going to buy a short-term rental, that makes me very nervous. It makes me very nervous that everybody and their mother thinks that this is the best investing thing. And why wouldn't it, be? I mean, if you think about it, kind of like the attractiveness factor to it, it's like you can own a bunch of vacation properties. You can even spend time in them yourself, right? And while I'm talking, Amy said, I live in Florida and the market is still hot. Everything is selling fast. Yes, everything is selling fast, which is exactly the reason why I would not recommend investing in short-term rentals, because of the fact that you can't get a deal, right? So you're saying things are selling fast. Yes, these short-term rentals are selling fast and for too much money. And that's the exact reason why I would not invest in them. So again, I talked about the fact that I think that these values are overpriced. I talked about the fact why everybody wants to do it. Talked about the fact that my concern is that the values of these assets is not going to go up a lot, and maybe even has some room to come down over the next few years. And if that's the case, you're not going to be able to refi a year or two later, pull the equity and buy another property, which is the most important part about investing. Like if you want to build, an asset chamber, if you want to build this big, massive portfolio, unless you have millions upon millions of dollars for down payments, you need to be able to buy a property at a good price, get appreciation, and then refi it and take money from that property and buy another one. Ultimately, what they call the BRRRR strategy. And if you're buying at the top, or even if you're buying and the asset isn't going that much up, it makes me worried. Okay, so reason number 2 why I wouldn't invest in short-term rentals today is the economy. I think everybody knows this. What I'm about to say, I think everybody knows, but I think that in a lot of cases, it's easy to kind of overlook it, which is that short-term rentals, renting a short-term vacation property, is discretionary spending, meaning that nobody has to go on vacation. Nobody. There's nobody in the world that if they give up their vacation is going to suffer some massive loss. Yes, maybe mentally you'll say, I needed a vacation that year or whatnot, but it's completely discretionary. And in fact, like if I look at even what I do, and I think about like what I spend money on, I spend money on my mortgages for my 2 properties that I own, my personal residences, cars, food, kids' activities, and then vacations. I mean, those, maybe I'm missing something. I probably am, but those are the things that kind of come off the top of my head that I spend most of my money on. And the one that's the most easiest for me to cut is vacations, right? Again, think about these things, right? Like if I have to cut something, I'm not going to stop paying my mortgages. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to stop paying my car payments. I need a car. I'm not going to stop eating. Maybe I'll cut down on eating out or stuff like that. I'm not going to cut down on my kids' activities. I mean, I'm not going to tell my son that he can't play hockey this year so that we can go on another vacation, right? I'm not going to have him give up 6 months of fun for like 1 week of staying at a short-term rental property. And so when the economy changes, less people will be looking for these assets. At the same time, there are more of these assets on the market, right? As people start doing this, and they've started doing it in droves, more supply is being added to the market, while at the same time, less people are out there looking. Now, as I said this on my personal Facebook page, and somebody pointed this out to me, everybody likes to kind of comment on different things. And a lot of times their comments are not the full picture. And the comment was said to me that, if you have a rental in a really nice location, it's always going to rent, which is a factual statement. If you have a short-term rental in a nice area with a lot of amenities, somebody will rent it. But that's not the point. That's actually missing the point. It's not that it can't rent. It's at what price will it rent, okay? So the way that supply and demand works is just simple. When there is more supply and less demand, prices come down. So I don't care where your vacation property is. I don't care how desirable it is. If there is way more options for people to rent the same exact type of property, and a lot less people are looking to rent that same exact type of property, then rents are going to come down. And so when we talk about like point number 1 of why I won't buy short-term rentals, it kind of gets combined with point number 2, which is that if you're paying a ton for that asset up front, right, and you need every last dollar, every last collected dollar of projected rent to even break even or make a couple bucks, and then all of a sudden rental prices come down a little bit, you've got a really bad situation there, right? So the thing that I would look at if I was thinking about doing short-term rentals for any reason, I would start to look and say, what if my rents came down by 20%? Would this property still work? And I don't know, there's no necessarily magic formula to what I'm saying, but I would start to look and I would say, if for whatever reason my rents come down, can I still carry this property? And to give one more, simple story to this, we actually got an opportunity to buy an off-market property on Cape Cod, really, really nice location. It was actually a property that we got under contract to flip. And after we got the property under contract to flip, we started running the numbers. And just like everybody else, like as I'm talking about why I won't invest in short-term rentals, I still have a desire to invest in short-term rentals because I think it would be a really cool business. Seems really fun. I mean, who doesn't want to, own these assets? But we started, running the numbers on these. And what we found in this deal that we got off market at a discount is that we would need literally every last dollar to even break even. And that was when we looked at it and said, are we actually thinking about buying this because it's a smart investment decision? Or do we just want to own a property on the Cape and have it once in a while for ourselves? And that's what it ended up really being. And we said, okay, if we're going to do something like that, it's not an investment. For it to be an investment, it's going to go up in value, right? It has to really cash flow. All right, so reason number 3 why I will not invest in short-term rentals is regulation. Okay, so regulation is really, really tricky. And actually there's another one that's tied to that, but we all know that there's regulation risk with these short-term rentals. And one cool thing that somebody pointed out when I actually did this post the other day was that they said that they buy these short-term rentals with the intention to rent them out short-term, but with the ability to still cash flow even if they had to be long-term rentals. Meaning that if you're renting the short-term rental for $2,000 a week, if for whatever reason regulation got shut down, regulation shut down the ability for you to do this as a short-term rental, you would still actually be able to rent it out long-term and cash flow. And I thought that was brilliant. And this is why, as I'm sitting kind of, standing in front of you all, talking into a mic, there are specific situational things that depending on what market you're in, depending on what your strategy is, it still may make sense to invest in short-term rentals. I won't do it for all the reasons that I'm talking about today. But if you're curious, if you have a specific reason why you think short-term rentals would work for you, I'd love to have the conversation with you one-on-one to talk a little bit about, where you're at today, where you want to go, and whether or not this could be a good strategy for you, or maybe it's just not. In order to book a free strategy session, again, just go to www.agentinvestorinnercircle.com. All right, so back to regulation. So me and my wife went to Charleston, South Carolina, last April, and we're getting toured around. We're on a horse, actually. The guy who's driving the horse, or whatever you want to call that. We're on the back of like a buggy. He's talking to us, and he points out a property in Charleston, and he said that used to be the most popular short-term rental in all of Charleston. And we looked at it and looked like a great location and could see kind of why people would want to stay there. And, we said, well, why isn't it anymore? And he said, well, they don't allow short-term rentals in Charleston anymore. Like, just don't allow it. And this is the part that I think scares me the most about short-term rentals. I already mentioned, a couple reasons why I won't invest in short-term rentals. But for me, the biggest reason is regulation. It makes me very nervous that my investing strategy could be taken away by, somebody signing a piece of paper, right? And here's what scares me the most about the regulation is the fact that these hotel chains and other resort type companies, they have millions and millions and millions and billions of dollars to spend to try to lobby, people, to do this, right? They're out there lobbying, they're out there trying to make it harder for people to do short-term rentals. And there can be a lot of reasons why maybe, they can make an argument that short-term rentals aren't good, right? So my opinion is that this is just going to continue. Where it goes, I don't know. I don't really love predicting the future. I can say this, it's continuously getting worse over the course of time. More and more areas are putting restrictions or banning it outright. And I don't know necessarily that anywhere is 100% safe over the long haul. Now, I don't want to say what I think is going to happen because I don't know. I don't know if, just certain counties might ban it or set up rules. I don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but I do know that and this is why all of these 5 reasons, they're combined to be problematic, right? When you are paying top dollar and you need every last bit of rent, and then the town that you're in says, no, you can't do short-term rentals anymore. Now you're in a place where it's like, well, what do you do with it? And if you don't have that backup plan, like one of the posters on one of my threads, then what do you do? Just really, really challenging. So regulation it's kind of an unknown. You don't know what's going to happen, but you also know that it's probably not going to improve. You also know that almost no matter where you buy something, there could be a problem, which takes me to point number 4 of reasons why I won't do this, which is that regulation doesn't necessarily just mean kind of like shutting things down, but regulation can also mean fees. It can also mean that they're changing the way that you can do things, or maybe you can do short-term rentals, but you need to do at least, I think in Hawaii, my friend told me it's at least a 1-month stay, right? So that's technically a regulation that has changed his ability to make money, but it's not that they shut down, the ability to actually do it. But point number 4 is there's all of these fees kind of being popped up. So, just like a hotel pays taxes and fees and all that stuff, these municipalities and these, government, based operations are looking to get paid as well. Now, again, getting back to kind of how all of this stuff ties in together, if you're paying a ton of money, if the economy starts to kind of falter a little bit, and then you have to pay more fees, now you're cutting into your profit margin, which again, if I had to highlight, one of the biggest points of why I won't invest in short-term rentals, it's because of the unknown. Like when I go down the hole of putting my blood, sweat, and tears into an investing strategy, I don't like for the ability for the rules to change. And there's just so much unknown right now with short-term rentals. Even though my friend, started investing in short-term rentals 10 years ago, and even though some people did it even before then, it really hasn't been super mainstream until probably the past 2 or 3 years. And when I say mainstream, I just mean that my mother now knows about short-term rentals. My mother knows that it's an option to do this, right? So I just don't like that. And point number 5, which is again, these kind of all kind of tie together, but it's just something that I've been hearing over and over again. Short-term rentals used to be known for the ability to get a much better value than you would be able to get at a hotel. And again, these points really, they do all tie together. What I've been hearing from a lot of people is that they're being asked to do things when they rent a short-term rental that they wouldn't have to do at a hotel. Simple things that make your stay a little bit less compelling, like making sure the house is cleaned up when you leave, or this type of fee or that type of fee. Or, they used to be able to go to this one spot and there would be a bunch of towels for them, but now those towels are not available. And I'm giving just a simple, stupid kind of example. But what I've been hearing, and for those of you, who are doing this, and ultimately, again, these points are all tied together, is that it's becoming a lot more inconvenient and less fun to rent a short-term rental because of the fact that you need to do all these things. And the cleaning example is a really simple one to understand. When my friend bought the short-term rental on the Cape in Falmouth in 2013, it wasn't even a thought that the people who stayed should be cleaning, because he had plenty of margin to hire a cleaner. And really a cleaner, in my opinion, they should be going in, whether you do the cleaning or somebody else does the cleaning. But to me, if I'm going to stay at a short-term rental, I'm going there to vacation, to have fun. I'm not going there to do work. I'm definitely not going there to clean up a property. But why has that been something that's changed? Again, how this stuff is all tied together is that when people are paying more for these assets, the margins are getting tighter. Municipalities are adding taxes and fees and all this other stuff, combined with the fact that maybe now there's less bookings. The only way that a lot of these people who own the short-term rentals can survive is by saying, hey, you need to clean the property so that I can avoid paying $300 to have the property cleaned. So all of these things, like I said, they all kind of tie together. I give you 5 reasons. They all tie together to the fact that it is no longer a highly profitable business to own short-term rentals, to buy short-term rentals. I talked about in the early part of this conversation that 10 to 20% of people who are probably experts and maybe have already done it a lot or have some sort of competitive advantage in doing short-term rentals are going to be fine. My biggest concern is for the people that have never done it before, who are thinking about getting in, and I believe that those people are swimming against the tide. Something I talk about so much with investing is swimming with the tide or swimming against the tide. When you are swimming with the tide, if you bought that Cape rental in 2013, like my friend, for $250,000, you didn't need to be a good operator back then in order to be profitable. You were swimming with the tide. You didn't need to buy that property at a discount to be able to then refinance it a couple years later because the market was going up, right? So when you're swimming with the tide and you're buying at the right time, you can be an average and sometimes even a below average operator and still do really, really well. When you're buying at the wrong time, and I would define today as the wrong time, you have to be an exceptional operator in order to be profitable. And again, what gets me the most concerned about this is people who have never done short-term rentals, who don't understand them, who think it's the best thing in the world because their friend bought one 4 or 5 years ago and their friend tells them how profitable it is. And that friend is not considering that they would have to buy in this particular market in order to be successful. And just really the allure of being like, wow, I would love to own a property in XYZ location, which, by the way, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think is the biggest reason why people want to do this. It's not that they actually if you were to give truth serum to most people who want to do this, the number one reason they'd be picking short-term rentals is not because they're actually the best financial investment. It's for the allure of, hey, I'm going to own this vacation property and it's an investment at the same time. And I think that's a dangerous combination. And so, everything I'm saying today, like I said, multiple times, you have to consider your own personal situation, which is why I strongly recommend that if you're listening to this and you agree with some of these points and you're still on the fence of whether or not doing a short-term rental makes sense, I would jump on that one-on-one call with me at www.agentinvestorinnercircle.com, and we can kind of talk through your own individual situation. When I get on a call with anybody and we talk through your situation, I'm going to look at everything that you have going on. And if you're thinking about doing a short-term rental, you probably have a compelling reason to do it, and I would love to hear it. And I'm either going to poke holes in it and tell you why I don't think it's the right thing to do, or I'm going to agree. I'm going to say, hey, you're an outlier. You're the 10 or 20% of people that should do this. And this is why. And I'm going to tell you that that's the reason I don't love doing kind of group training where I'm not necessarily talking to each person individually. But at the end of the day, like I said, I think you just have to be very careful when everybody's doing something, any type of investing, when your neighbor, when your best friend, when somebody else is doing it. You have to really think long and hard about whether it's going to make sense, because usually the crowd is wrong. And the reason why the crowd is wrong typically is because by the time the crowd knows about something, it's already pushed the asset price up too much for it to be a great deal. It's in the beginning phases of that type of investing strategy where, like when my friend did this in 2013, when people were saying to him, yeah, well, like you'll be lucky to rent out, 6 weeks or 7 weeks, or, the economy's not good right now. It's when people are kind of like almost talking you out of something that you can get better values. And when everybody's kind of aligned that, short-term rentals are the best thing in the world, that actually gives me pause. And I don't base all of my investing strategies on being a contrarian. I don't think that makes sense. But I do think that when everybody's doing something, it makes me question whether or not it's a good opportunity. So again, guys, thank you for tuning in. I do want to let everybody who's listening on know about the investment conference that we have coming up. It's a 3-hour conference at the Sheraton Hotel in Framingham, and it's called Deal or No Deal. There'll be about 50 people there. It's going to be a little bit smaller. Let me see if I can put the link somewhere. I'm going to put the link down below that the people can sign up for. And if you click the link, it's a jot form. It'll take you to the next event that we have coming up. And it's taking place on Tuesday, June 27th from 11 to 2 p.m. at the Sheraton Hotel in Framingham. And it's called Deal or No Deal because we're going to go through analyzing different types of properties and ultimately whether or not how we analyze these properties to make sure that they're good deals. It kind of piggybacks a little bit about what we're talking about today. So we're going to be showing how we analyze fix and flip opportunities, how we analyze small multifamily cash flowing, 1 to 4 unit properties. And then we're going to show you all how we analyze apartment buildings. Analyzing deals is one of the most important parts of this business. It is the part of the business that can make or break you literally. I mean, if you buy a property to fix and flip and it's not profitable, you're losing money literally. Vice versa, if you fix and flip and you buy it at a great price, you analyze it the right way, even if the renovation doesn't exactly go how you planned it, you're probably still going to be profitable. Same thing goes with smaller multifamily apartments. Same multifamily rentals, and same thing goes with apartments. So we hope to see everybody. The event is completely free. We're going to be serving lunch 11 to 2 p.m. at the Sheraton Hotel in Framingham. We're trying now to kind of circle around the New England area to give everybody, an opportunity to attend while at the same time picking locations that are somewhat convenient for anybody. Framingham, I know, for me, it's going to be like a 45 minute drive, not too bad, but, anybody that's, Worcester County up and down, definitely a great opportunity. If you haven't seen one of our events in person, to come check it out. So thank you everybody for jumping on today. Again, feel free to book a call at www.agentinvestorinnercircle.com. And we'll see you guys again next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Thank you.